Malayalis have always been in love with Amol Palekar. Olangal is a movie that is etched in our memories. And as earlier mentioned, the sheer nostalgia of a song like Tumbiva Tumbakudatil. I think it also defines who the Malayali is, some of these songs. A warm welcome to both of you, Amol and Sandhya. I would like to begin with a landscape that you have unveiled in front of us with your book, Viewfinder, because you're literally talking about a huge span of Indian cinema as also theater and our own experiments with art, our perceptions around art, and many other questions surrounding the entertainment industry. So when you began on this long tryst with the entertainment industry. And I would not say that theater maybe is what we would consider to be a part of the industry itself, because your traditions and lineages have been very different. But I would like to begin with a question which is there in your book, which is there in the dedication of your book, where you say that the book is dedicated to all those who, if I can remember correctly, the power of resistance. This is the dedication. A memoir, a Viewfinder, a memoir by Amol Palekar to those who believe in the power of resistance. Now, I thought this was an amazing kind of a dedication, because here is an actor, and a very, very beloved actor at that, talking about the power of resistance. What is this resistance that you're talking about?
Well, to begin with, as I've mentioned in the book, very few people know that I became an actor sheerly by accident. So, the journey of an actor, or later on director and so many other things, it was never as part of being part of the flow or part of the mainstream. My entry into theater also was not part of the mainstream, nor in the films. In fact, in an interesting way, probably, but my entry into Hindi films also began with a resistance to the idea that I will not go and meet the producer. When Basu Chatterjee approached me before Rajnigandha, it was for a film called Piya Ka Ghar. Basudha approached me and asked me if I would like to act in that film. Since it was a remake of a Marathi film, I knew the subject very well. So I immediately said yes. So to which he said, then in that case, please go and meet the producer. I said, no, I will not. And the reason was simple. I said, I don't want to stand there in the queue with all the aspirants who are there. I will not follow the tradition or whatever practice that was prevalent. He was quite and rightly upset about that. So that film happened, but without me. So if you take that as the starting point of my career, it was the resistance to the idea that if the not resistance to the idea, but it was what I was opposing was, I wanted him. I told him, I said, if you think I am the right person, if you think I am your hero, you should take me with dignity, to the producer and say, here is a man who I want to be the hero. Don't ask me to go and stand in the queue. So it is that little resistance, or you may call, it was that right from the beginning.
But I also see a number of other resistances. The resistances to stereotypical representations, the resistance to the way in which a conventional kind of cinema was being built at that stage, the resistance to roles being taken up, the resistance to many of the things happening in an overarchingly industrial kind of precincts of cinema. So there are a number of resistances in your life which I really admire, and that is why that dedication really caught my eye. But then to us who were always, great fans of Amol Palekar, this resistance maybe was not something we actually noticed in the beginning. But looking back at the history of Indian cinema, the history of Malayalam cinema also in a sense, we see the kind of resistances that people like him forged, which helped us maybe craft a different kind of cinema today. Now, I really need to come to Sandhya Gokhale. And one question that I wanted to ask you is, what a creative couple. Because I think so many of your films have been undertaken together.
8 films.
8 films, to be precise. So I don't know, creative conjugality, if I can call it that. Would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I think we have fun. We have fun living life. And probably being creative is what we live. Whether we make a documentary or whether we have convened several theatre festivals, there is a theme, and how it should always have something different than the most of the routine kind of depiction is. Yeah, we strive for it. Actually, the main reason for it is our likes and dislikes are similar. Our sensibilities are similar. We both love literature, music. He's a great feminist person. So if he was not, then probably I would have had a very different time with him. Because if you see our themes of our cinema, they're very progressive. And unless he was that kind of a human being, he's very contemporary, very well-read. So it becomes very, very enchanting and lively to be with each other.
Amol Palekar, yes. Amol Palekar represents for many of us a different kind of a masculinity that was being thrust upon us. Right? Here was a man who was gentle, who could cry, and the macho masculinities that we were quite used to by then, he completely rewrote that script, I think. So, what is it, Sandhya, that you liked about this man before you met him? Did you really think about his films in that manner?
Yes, he certainly stands for a very different image. When you see his first few films, 3 or 4 films with Basudha and Rishida, one tends to think that, oh, he's a boy next door. Very often, many fans come to him assuming that he is that in the real life also. In the real life, he's not like that. He's a serious person, a quiet person, and very opposite to what he depicts or his images in the films. But then that combination is always offered him a kind of a dilemma that, people come to him thinking he's Ram Prasad or Lakshman Prasad, but he's way, way, way beyond that, and he's much more than that. He's a painter and so many other things. So he expects people to kind of recognize those aspects also and then interact. So sometimes if I hear someone comes to him and talks about his paintings or theater, I can see a lit face in him. Whereas if somebody talks about, oh, Gori Tera Gao Bada and all that, then he's like, okay, okay. So that's where we, in the first chapter also we've talked about, it's the, in the Marathi or Hindi, there is a pun on language. It's called double roll chi gochi. It's the problem of the double role. In real life, who he is and in the image that he projects or he depicts on screen are two different persona.
Obviously,
I
yeah,
will-
yeah, please.
I will just add a little to that. After my debut in the Hindi film industry, and a very successful one, I was one of the most successful beginning. My first 3 films were Silver Jubilee hits, and therefore I was an established star. After that, I chose to play a villain in Shyam Benegal's Bhumika. People were shocked. The industry was totally rattled. But even my fans, they were shocked. And I mean, I still remember one incident where he walked up to me and he was all gaga. He said, how did you manage to bring that villainous kind of gray shade and black shade into it? And a close friend of mine, he said, he doesn't know that that's real you. The villain is the real you. The boy next door is an acting.
But what fascinated me about Amol's films were not just the boy next door. There were so many shades of the boys next door, of the Aam Aadmi, of the common man that creeps into his films, and each one is different from the other one. So it's not the commonness of the common man, I think, it's the uncommonness of common people. It's the varieties and the shades and the hues, the different variegated hues of common people that you actually brought out. And I think, to come back to what you were saying, it really doesn't matter to us who Amol is in real life, because we can see that there is a diversity and there is a depth to his vision, which is what actually which continues to enthrall many of us. You spoke about painting and theater. Again, fascinating aspects of your art. But then you came from theater into cinema. And what are the strengths? What kind of foundations did theater create in you, which you think took you a long way into the film industry and made you create maybe a different kind of, a lineage?
Well, there are the way I was groomed into theater, and I was most fortunate to be taught by one of the doyens, Satyadev Dubey, and I entered Hindi theater and not Marathi theater, but I started my journey by learning from Dubey. Now, along with Dubey, I was also taught the basics, the ABC of acting in theater by doyens like Shambhu Mitra from Bengal, or Badal Sarkar, Utpal Dutt. All these people, they were such giants, and I was able to learn from them the basics of acting. One of the first rules that I still remember, and which I tried to follow till I keep performing, is that what Shambhuda taught me. He said that whatever you're doing is completely well rehearsed. The lines have been written by the writer. Then whatever you have to do on stage has been taught to you by the director. The lighting expert tells you that at that particular spot, come right here so that you can take that light. All these things have been rehearsed very well till it doesn't look rehearsed. And he said, going beyond that, not looking rehearsed, here is what makes an actor into an artist, is to make the audience feel that this is not a line written by somebody else. This is not a line written by Salim Javed, तुम्हारे पास क्या है, मेरे पास माँ है. It is the quality that actor brings that he makes you feel that this is happening for the first time just now. And nothing else would happen, only this thing would happen. That's what makes an actor into an artist. Now this learning at a very young age, I was in my 20s, learning at a very young age has remained with me till the end. And I also tried to, another thing which I tried to adopt and use was, even when I played the grey characters, or even when I played a villain in Bhumika, or my own film Akrit, or Vidhu Vinod Chopra's Khamosh, I played out and out villains. Even there, I portrayed them in such a way that they were not only believable, but there was some vulnerability in them which I tried to portray, and that this can happen, and only this can happen at this particular stage. So whether in theatre or in films, I tried to follow what Shambhuda taught me.
Amol, sorry for calling you Amol, because
Please
we
go
both
ahead.
are the same age. I grew up with you. I was in love with many of the characters that you played, and I always feel that we are the same age. It doesn't matter. I think age doesn't matter because the characters are timeless. And for me, many of my girlhood dreams, for example, were tinted by the characters that you played. So thank you for that. And that's the reason why I call you Amol, with a lot of love. But more than 5 decades in the artscape of India, in theatre, in painting, in cinema, and also maybe, as you rightly pointed out, in some of the resistance movements, that are part and parcel of the way we try to conceptualize a different kind of art, I don't want to use the word alternative. Amongst these different ages that you have straddled, which age do you like the most?
Difficult to choose, but because my era or my period when I was in the film industry as an actor or even as a director, that those times were different from today. Today, the technological advances have made art, or rather the craft, so very easy to capture. I mean, right from the camera to editing tools to anything and everything. Like I have mentioned in the book, how Aaj se pehle, aaj se zyada, that song was picturized. Today, I mean, people can't even believe that all those pains we had to go through that. I mean, the cinematographer was tied with rope on the bonnet. There were no grips available, which are today easily available. All kinds of grips are available. So the cinematographer doesn't even have to be there. He can be sitting in front of the monitor, and with the help of the grips, he can still capture the image, which is a huge advantage to the technicians today. But that wasn't there. So we had to find our ways, struggle, and find the answers to whatever we wanted to do differently. And that's a huge, huge change in the times that as I see.
Having said that, probably he would choose, if you give him a choice, that I think 70s and 80s, that's the era where you see the theatre as a space and a screen as space evolved in many directions. There were 3-4 kinds of cinema coexisting beautifully. There was Jai Santoshima on one hand, there was Dara Singh, kind of, sort of, they were looked down upon as B great films. There was mainstream cinema, and there was middle of the road cinema where Rushida and Basuda made. And also if you see theatre at that time, there was this confluence of Bengali, Hindi, Marathi, English theatre being performed in different states. And there was this give and take in terms of literature. So I think that period, and that's where the experimental theatre, cinema, Shyam Benegal's cinema, evolved also. So that period was kind of a renaissance period. Even in terms of music, we see that they were just so brilliant musicians at that time and singers.
So even as we are mesmerized by these songs, by the roles that he played, one thing is very striking about Amol Palekar, which again, for somebody like me, from a more academic point of view, is very important. He has always stood up for the freedom of the artist and the freedom of art itself, which I think is a very, very powerful signifier in the world that we inhabit today. I think all of you in this room would agree with me there. Always, always stand up for the freedom of art. I would like to read a couple of lines which were very striking. I mean, it was a direct appeal not just to artists, but to academicians, to teachers, to the common people themselves. He says, I felt disheartened to see the precarious state of artists. Why succumb to fear? Why relinquish your autonomy? Couldn't we muster some courage to stand tall, at least in the twilight of our lives? Wasn't there shame and disgrace in being powerless in the face of establishment? Are we really willing to sacrifice our dignity for a few assignments, grants, donations, houses under artist quota, committee memberships, and other accolades? I think these lines gain more and more relevance in the age that we are living in today. How do you respond to that?
I think I have said all that is to be said. Beyond that, I don't think I need to add anything. But I will just respond to something which you mentioned earlier. You said, not in so many words, but you said that you were in love with me. Well, thank you for that. But do you realize that one of the qualities that I portrayed in films, the hero never ever uttered those words. In Rajnigandha, in Choti Si Baat, in Chitchor, or all those films, the hero never ever says कि मैं तुम्हें प्यार करता हूँ or how much I love you. He doesn't mention that. And despite not mentioning that, he is the one who conveys his love so much that it is believable the girl believes that this man is in love with her. Now that was one major deviation or difference from the what was being portrayed in the films, not only in Hindi films, I think all Indian films at that time, larger than life portrayals, whether it is fighting against the villain or whether it is expressing one's love. It was always larger than life. And what I conveyed was something which was as common as any one of us would do.
Yes, as a rejoinder, I would also like to add that it was not just the characters you played in the sense of whether they talked about love or romance. It was also the time where thundering, angry young men filled, the silver screen, or they were delivering big dialogues. And as women, as ordinary women, we just couldn't identify with those macho, masculine types of people. So here was a softer, gentler way of telling that men could also be this, that there are alternative ways of looking at masculinities, that men, it's okay for men to be gentle and kind and all that. So that was the reason why I think women of my generation really admired you. But to come back to the question that I raised about autonomy and freedom of art and artists, where is it that you have encountered this most in your life as an artist, where you felt choked by bans or by the censorships that were put in place? Could you care to talk about that?
In theatre, first time when I fought, in true sense fought, against censorship was a play called Vasana Kand. It's a Marathi play written by Mahesh Elkunchwar. And the government just banned it. They refused to give us, I must, before I go further details, I must say that it's a weird situation in our country that there are only two states, Maharashtra and Gujarat, which require us to submit our complete script to the scrutiny board, and scrutiny board decides what is allowed, what is acceptable. They say, delete this dialogue, don't use this word. Or the ultimate thing is, no, this play will not be performed at all. So in that context, the government chose, the scrutiny board chose to say that no, this play cannot be performed. I went against it to Bombay High Court and fought against it. And Bombay High Court not only cleared that play, but the judgment, I think, is so important and so relevant even today, that it said that there is no evidence given by the government that this play will cause disturbances or law and order situation as they have claimed. But assuming that there would be a law and order situation after performing this play, it is the duty of the government to protect the artist and the art and not side with the gundas who are trying to stop them.
I think there was an incident that I remember, Thang, I think, the movie Thang in Marathi, which actually dealt with same-sex love and how it disrupts the family. It's not about disruption, but certain very, very critical questions were raised around the institution of the family itself. And Thang in Marathi was banned, while the same movie in English, titled Quest, was given an A certification. And I think you fought it through.
Yes, actually, we asked them to give us in writing that what is your reasoning. They refused to give us in writing because they knew that the minute they give us in writing the order, I will challenge that. Oh, you have to understand that in all literatures, especially in Marathi, same-sex love or homosexuality is talked about from maybe the first Marathi literature that I read in the 1940s. So this issue was nothing new at that time. We made the film in 2008. Nothing new in that is what my argument was. Well, the story was written by me. It was a man-woman relationship on the background of homosexuality was the theme. And they failed to see what we were trying to say. They could not give any rational reason. And obviously, and we sought A certificate. We didn't seek any U certificate. So ultimately, they did give, clear the film. Incidentally, if you buy the book, in the book, we have encoded QR codes. And it's a very something different that we have adopted in a non-fiction or fiction genre. That if you scan the QR codes, you will be able to watch all these films that we have talking about. For instance, Quest and Thang, both you will be able to see it, and the content is 4K resolution. So as a result of which, if you want to magnify it and cast it on bigger screen, you'll be able to do that. And that's one advantage that we chose to write this book, especially because we wanted to reach out to people and show how different themes that we dealt with and way before they were actually talked about.
I thought it was a brilliant idea. Whose idea was it? Yours. Hats off to you for that. But I see many ideas of yours all through, because even this act of challenging that quote, because I don't know how many of you know this, but she's also a trained lawyer, fundamentally a lawyer who moved into cinema and to scripting. Could you talk a little bit about the journey? It must have been a very disruptive kind of a journey at one point because you would have to know.
Not at all. Yeah. Usually people think that law is some drab subject. Law is fascinating. And it's most creative because I'm a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a sort of a income tax lawyer that, oh, you have violated X, so your punishment will be Y. We have to constantly interpret various acts. And whatever you think that they are the rules and follow it, we challenge those rules. We challenge those rules, the constitutionality of those rules. So it's a very interesting, very creative field. And most people think that it's mutually exclusive. I think if you are fond of literature, languages, philosophy, and various other disciplines, I think the journey becomes very easy. It was not very difficult for me because I think I practiced law for 10 years in New York. And I had almost forgotten that I know music, I used to write, I used to read a lot because I became just probably a machine, 18 hours a day. And so I was really worn out and I realized that there are other faculties of my life that I need to sort of show the light to. And in fact, Amol is the one who said that if you don't stop being a lawyer, you will continue that and you will stop all these creative activities. So his proposition was that take a sabbatical, say for 10 years, He said it's a sabbatical. He used to say that as a sabbatical, but for me it was a bonded labor contract. Where, but I love that. And then he really initiated the process that, no, you write a script. And my first script that I wrote was of Anahat. Again, that movie is also in the book. I mean, you can see the film through the book with English subtitles. So it was fun. And we adopted many literary already novels and stories. So it was something fascinating.
I think creative writing was something that you already had
already
passion
I used
for.
to do it. Yes.
And this was almost seamless, your transition into...
I really didn't see. Initially, I used to feel the action in the court. I used to miss that. But then I said, we have to just see life in stages. And I was right in that point, because now I'm back doing law. So I did all that. I wrote 8 films for him, and we did the documentary on Kishori Amonkar and many other things we did. And now I'm back. So I think I was very lucky to get that balance.
Which amongst these 8 films that you did together would you say you like the most? Is there anything, a story behind that?
I think, I'm a little hesitant to say that, talking about one's own creation, I'm a little bit, but I like Dusar. The name means it's blur. It's in Marathi, though you can watch it with English subtitles. It's on Alzheimer's. Again, that was made in 2011, I think. It's way beyond, before we also know Alzheimer's. At that time, nobody talked about it. So I tried to see the man-woman relationship with in its different contingencies. And I used to be criticized that your female characters are too strong. So I tried to say to Amol that, okay, let me try writing a vulnerable character.
How strong is too strong? That is...
No, right. So in Dusar, I tried to make her vulnerable. But at the end of the day, apparently people say that no, it's so strong, because Rima Lagu performed it beautifully. And probably that's a lacuna in my work. But one tries, that's all.
Sometimes there are these things that make you sit up. And you made me sit up once when you wrote a letter to Sunny Leone, I think. There's a wonderful instance where one woman reaches out to another and says that, hey, there needs to be more resistance and all strength to you. That was an act of great sisterhood. Would you care to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually...
we are in the age of the HEMA committee and, some of the huge debates that are happening in women's condition in cinema and within the industry, labor, etc.
Sure. I happened to watch that television program where Sunny Leone was being interviewed by a male anchor. I don't want to even talk about his political lineage. But whosoever he was, he was a man and there was a woman, and his every pursuit was to humiliate her. He was trying to look down upon her. He was trying to kind of patronize her at some points. And as a woman, I felt extremely angry about it. And I thought she answered very dignified, very elegantly, without getting, defensive about anything. But I thought that somebody should talk about his demeanor, which was inappropriate. And that's why I chose to write that letter. And at that point, I think in Times of India, those were probably not the days of being viral or whatever, but yes, I mean, it was well received. Um, I, as a lawyer of women's rights, I think that we should speak up. Women should speak up, and we all should give them the power that is necessary. And we should join hands to do that together. It's not only a woman's problem, it's our problem too. Unless we suffer or we go through that problem, then we wake up and we say that, oh, you support me. But at that point, you don't realize that you have not supported someone who already has gone through that problem. So we need to wake up, and I think in that spirit, probably I had written that letter.
Thank you. All strength to women like Sandhya, especially in the age of online lynching and slut shaming and moral policing of the worst kind. I think we need more women and more men to stand up for such rights. To come back to something that you mentioned earlier, Sandhya was a little worried that we would not understand the immense depth of the artist. Amol's reading actually talks about it in the book. Because there is something that always worries me in recent, say for example, Malayalam cinema. The power of the word, the depth of the image, the perceptiveness of the thought, all these somehow often miss the mark because of a deep vacuum as far as larger readings are concerned. So as I read through your book, Amol, what came through for me as a lover of literature is also the kind of vastness of your reading. Amol was talking about Freud, he was talking about Kant, he was talking about the myth of Sisyphus. Could you care to tell us a little bit about what are the influences as far as literature is on your life?
My fondness for reading is again attributed to my eldest sister. So, as I always say, women in my life have shaped my not only career, but my entire being into what it is today. It is the women. It is also interesting, if I may point out, that my first debut film, Rajnigandha, if I point out that it's a woman-centric film, it's not about the hero as most of our mainstream cinema, even in regional languages, we talk about a man and then his life or his kartoot as we call it, whatever he does. Rajnigandha was a film talking about a woman's dilemma, whether to go back to her first lover or to come to this present man who's so forgetful, doesn't bother about it, doesn't even talk about love. All that he does is talk about the office politics. So it's the woman's dilemma which was so different and very ably put up. So I have come up from that tradition, or that's how I was groomed. And my fondness for reading, again, it only went on growing up, and as people who gave me in abundance taught me so much without any reservation, they also helped me to light up my more interest in literature and all. Just a slight aside, I will tell you, you mentioned about all the Sartre and all those things. I was equally fascinated by the recent serial I saw, which was based on Vasudevan Nayar's writings. I thought it was such a brilliant effort put up, and yes, and all the top people from Mammootty to everybody has contributed, and Kamal Hassan has gone out of his way to play the Sutradhar and introduce the serial. Now, what a great homage to a writer, to a great writer. Now, these are the things which fascinate me and still make me feel, oh, lovely. There is so much more to look forward to.
How do you recollect your experience in Malayalam cinema, especially the working? Because this is something that I'm sure the audience would love to ask you, but...
Well, it was a sheer pleasure. I was, when Balu Mahendra approached me, I was already a huge fan of Balu Mahendra. I had seen all his Tamil and Malayalam films. So when Balu approached me, without a single moment's hesitation, I said yes. But while actual shooting, it was such a pleasant experience. I mean, a little bit technicality is involved, but nonetheless, I think you would love to know that. Balu insisted that he will take his first shot at 6 or 6:30 in the morning.
Where was the location?
Location was in Ooty. And 3/4 of the film was shot, or even more, was in Ooty, and only a bit of it was shot on the sets in Bangalore. I had two lovely co-actors with me, Purnima Jayaram and Ambiga. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But what was most pleasant was, as I was mentioning, he would start shooting at 6 in the morning, which meant that we had to be on the location, and it was completely location shooting. We had to be present there at 5 o'clock to get ready and be ready, rehearse and be ready. As soon as the sun starts rising, he would start shooting. And then at around 9 o'clock, when the sunlight becomes harsh, he would say, now this location pack up. Only for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, he would shoot. And then we were again required to go back to a different location or same location maybe, but to the location at around 4 o'clock in the evening. So it was in the soft light that he shot, without using any artificial lights, without using even the reflectors. Now, many of you may not know, but the reflected light is so scorching that it burns your skin. With the reflectors and strong lights, acting is really something. I mean, I always used to joke about it, okay, when they said, okay, how does it feel to do a romantic scene with, say, X heroine or a Y heroine? I used to say, you don't know what all things we actors have to go through. These harsh lights, scorching lights, and then the cinematographer also tells you, okay, Amol, keep your head like this, because if you keep it like this, your shadow will fall on our face, so don't do that. Doing all those acrobats, it takes so much of your energy that there is no energy left to do anything else. But coming back to Balu Mahendra was such a pleasure working with him. And I will also, if I may go into little more details, acting in a foreign language, Malayalam was a completely foreign language to me. So he gave me enough time to prepare not only for my own dialogue, but also the dialogue which my co-actors are going to say. I will share that incident with you. When I did my first Kannada film called Kaneshwara Rama, I sat with the assistant director and he gave me my dialogues for the scene to be shot the next day. And I learned those lines. I have a good ear, so phonetically I could catch up the language correctly. So I learned the lines. He said, "Oh, lovely, your Kannada is so good." So Satyu was the director. Satyu came and heard that. And Satyu was also very pleased. He said, "Ki, Amol, you will do your own dubbing in your own voice." So, मेरी तो छाती चौड़ी हो गई 56 इंच की. And so next day when I went on the location, I was ready almost for the shot. And I suddenly realized that I had only mugged up my lines. I didn't know, I was playing that scene with Anant Nag. I didn't know what Anant was saying. Now, how the hell am I going to react? What am I going to react? I don't know what he's saying. So I quickly rushed to Anant and said, "Anant, quickly tell me your dialogues." So Anant said his dialogue. There were 2 bits of it. In between, I had to speak. So the first set of dialogue, he said those dialogue, and there was a word called police. So I knew that was my clue. And the next set was, there was a station. So I said, okay, this is. And I was only waiting to hear those words, police and station, and then perform my lines. So I learned my first lesson there, that I had to, when acting in a foreign language, I had not only to learn my own lines, but also know what my co-actor is going to say.
We did not suspect when you watched you that you had undergone all this pain, because it was a pleasure. I think the audience, there are so many questions that we need to take up around some of the legendary directors that you worked with, but we are running out of time, and I'm sure that the audience would like to pose a few questions. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have to share one conversation I had with my neighbor in Pune. So he told that Amol Palekar and Amitabh Bachchan were the 2 main people he always resonated. But the difference between them is that Amol Palekar had the common man's issues, and he solved it in the common man's way instead of joining the underworld. So what I'm asking is, currently the Hindi film industry, why they are not able to portray the common man's role like the way you did? Because we can see many stars, but we are not able to see those common man movies which discuss the common man's issue without going overboard.
Do you watch the recent OTT content?
Yes, I have seen Lapata Ladies, and I'm talking of the the big, like for example in Malayalam cinema we have the actors like Mohanlal.
Absolutely. I was about to say that, especially in Malayalam cinema, the kind of content we are getting is brilliant. And out of the blue topics, themes, very, very small issues, brilliant films we are getting. And actually, regional cinema always depicted, if you consider the mainstream Hindi cinema as opposed to regional cinema, you will always see a very rich bouquet of themes, issues of middle class audience, all that. But especially now with the onslaught of content on OTT, I feel that you do see once again middle of the road cinema. I mean, if you see Ayushmann Khurrana's films, I mean, there are many, especially Malayalam cinema. Yeah.
Yeah, but that question also has a very interesting rider to it. Because Amol's films were more successful in Hindi. I mean, he was more successful in Hindi than in Marathi. I've always wondered why.
He didn't act much in
Much in-
Marathi at all.
yeah.
Other than 2 films, he didn't. He never acted
Why is
in.
that?
I have written about that. I think, you see, unfortunately, we equate the commercial success as the whole success. There is something called artistic success of a film, and the critical acclaim need not be taken so lightly that the commercial success becomes ultimate success. Today also, if you see, you will only hear what everybody talks about is whether it's gone into 100 crore club or 700 crore club, and first week what was the etc. etc. Now, of course, commercial success is important, but in what magnitude? If you have made a film in 15 crores, and if that 15 crore film makes a revenue of 75 crores, isn't it a good enough success? But we will not look into that, and we will only get carried away by the tremendous commercial success that everybody keeps talking about. And that's where the other side of the creativity gets. Coming back to your question, Marathi cinema, my first 2 films was Shantata Kot Chalu Ahe and Bajiraocha Beta. Both of them were commercial flops. So naturally, I think Marathi film industry looked at me as a flop actor, and they didn't want to take any solace from my Hindi success. They thought, here is a flop actor, so let's not touch him.
Hello, sir. It's a great pleasure and privilege for us to see you and listen to you. Same goes to you, ma'am, Sandhya ma'am. And thanks, Meena ma'am, for making this interesting with very probing questions and making it lively, the whole show. So I'll make it quick, sir. My question to you is about one of your directorial attempts. It's about Paheli. So I have seen it when I was just passed out of college, and I love the way you gave it a feminist flavor to it from the initial story of Vijay Datta, Duvida. So, but when we see Paheli, it stands apart from the rest of your movies. Like, it's more glossy. There is this like widespread production quality, and the music by M.M. Cream, and I think Ravi K. Chandran photographed it. And it was produced by Shah Rukh and acted by Shah Rukh and Amitabh Bachchan. So I just want to know, sir, whether you were happy with the final outcome of the movie or not.
Absolutely.
And that was deliberately done because we wanted to portray a woman's fantasy. I mean, if you decode Paheli, you will find that. So it was absolutely a conscious choice to do it in the mainstream format, but the theme was so different that it would never be labeled as mainstream.
I've also always been a great fan of your films. What I wanted to ask is, with AI infiltrating every industry, do you think it will enhance artistic talent or suppress artistic talent in the film industry?
Very long. I mean, it can't be answered in one line. It will be very difficult to answer because it's unfair. It's going to help. It's going to help a lot. At the same time, we can see the limitations of AI in cinema. But it's a wonderful question. I wish we had a whole, session on that.
I think on that note, we come to a close. This book, I think, encapsulates an amazing age in Indian cinema, an amazing personality, as also the combination of 2 creative artists. I think a lot of you is there in the book also. Translated it, yes. But even otherwise, in many of the things that were narrated. So it's an amazing season. Hats off to 2 wonderful artists and a great man who gave us such lovely films to cherish. Thank you so much.